Hi everyone, Janet McMordie here. Before we get to this week's episode, I want to say a big thank you to this week's episode's sponsor. They were also last week's episode's sponsor, the Simcoe County Theater Festival. Oh, everyone, you know how much this theater festival means to me. I was very lucky to be in this theater festival last year and the year before. Sadly, I won't be in the festival this year because I'm going to a little known event in Paris called the Olympics, but I will definitely be going to see every single show I can get my hands on at this theater festival because I love the people at Theater by the Bay so much. All right, here we go. Experience the 3rd annual Simcoe County Theater Festival in downtown Barrie, powered by Theater by the Bay. Oh, you know how much I love the people at Theater by the Bay. Oh my goodness. This year's festival features 7 new shows by local Simcoe County artists. We've got a play for every taste, including a children's opera, a contemporary jazz dance piece, comedies, dramas, and so much more. Running July 10th to the 21st at the 5 Points Theater in Barrie. Join us for the Festival of the Summer and get tickets at theaterbythebay.com or call 705-735-9243. Once again, that's July 10th to the 21st at the 5 Points in Barrie. Yes, Toronto people, it is in Barrie, and I know Barrie seems like a universe away, but it's not that far. It's up the 400 highway, yes, but there's also a GO train you can take literally right to the theater, pretty much. And I know a lot of you wonderful listeners came up to see my show at the festival last summer, so you know it's not that far. I hope you will consider supporting indie theater and supporting the festival again this year. I know I will. All right, on with the show. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMordie, and I'm still a medical doctor, simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is David Pinard, and this is a new one, a new first act that I've never had before. He is a reality TV show star turned actor. I will say, a little caveat, he has always been an artistic creative. He's a musician, always kind of acting, theatrical, stuff like that, but too bad. I'm calling him because it's my podcast, I can do what I want. I'm calling him a reality TV show star turned actor. If you recognize him, especially if you're Canadian, you probably will. He has been in over 13 Hallmark movies. And if you know Hallmark, you know we film it in Canada here all the time. It is our bread and butter. And he's also been in, like I said, reality TV up here in the Great White North. He was on The Bachelorette Canada. We talk about this. He was the villain. 100% he was the villain. He was on Bachelor in Paradise. He was on Canadian Idol. He's done a lot of really cool stuff to get him to where he is today. And I'm so thrilled that we connected and our mutual friend Charlotte introduced us and we have such a wonderful conversation. Please enjoy this absolute gem of a human being, David Pinard. Industry like Toronto, what I'm learning is that in order for like every other industry, especially New York and LA, people are so good at networking because it is so essential. And when it's a small industry like ours or up and coming, the only way that I think we can compete with like the juggernauts is if we start like networking and building this community together. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, Agreed. It just won't work.
Agreed.
It won't work. Yeah, but it's hard because I think especially. I don't know, there's the fine art of networking, right? And then I think we all have those experiences of people where you're like, dear God.
Where it comes off to,
so annoying.
Yeah. That's
like that shit.
My mentality to break that is I always try to find what can I do for somebody first but it's a bit easier once you've already had a little bit of success where you can offer some help. So if I have a +1 to an event that I think is like a good networking, I give it to somebody that I think maybe could help me down the line or something. So yeah.
Just does exactly what we need it to do, right? Mm-hmm. At least in my mind, right? It builds community. It's paying it forward. It's, selfishly giving yourself good karma, but isn't that all what life is about anyways?
Agreed. But because you have to shoot, you have to try. Because if yeah, it sometimes can seem, desperate and stuff. But yeah, it's funny. It's such a fine line because there are those people that they only message you when they need something kind of people. So it's a unique thing, but we need to do it. So
It's true. And I think a big realization for me is, and I know in the medical industry it happens as well too. I mean, there's scammers everywhere. I think rampant in the entertainment industry, sadly. But what I've realized over the last couple of years is, like, now that I started to see some quote unquote success or whatever, is that I really have kind of like cut down the amount of people that I let into the inner circle. But I was worried that that would make me less successful in this industry, right? But
hmm
I don't think it has. Like, I think there's a way to network without becoming like besties with everyone, which
oh,
is
agreed. Yeah, it's
hard.
overwhelming. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah.
only have so much time, energy, and money, right?
hmm
Yeah. Well, yeah. Tell me your story. How did you get into this crazy business of networking we're in?
Yeah. Well, so it was funny. I always had, like, when I was younger, I had this feeling in me that I loved entertaining people, but I had also this feeling of fear and anxiety. So I grew up as one of the Disney kids who would like dance and sing when he would watch the movies, and I always knew I kind of enjoyed doing something like that. And in grade six, when they had an opportunity for me to audition for the Wizard of Oz play in school, I practiced a dance with my mom and was like, okay, I'm going to go and do this. And then when I was sitting in the audition room and they were about to call my name, I panicked and I just walked home. And I told my mom, I was like, oh, they just didn't like me. I didn't do well enough. So I always had this feeling, but I always was really nervous to get up there. And what kind of changed everything for me was in grade 10, I was like, I'll just sign up for drama class and see how it goes. And the encouragement that I got from my drama teacher and even the other people in my class are like, oh, you're good at this. Like, maybe you audition for the play. And I'm like, oh, no, like, I'm not going to audition. He's like, I'll just put you in. You don't even have to audition. And from that moving forward, where I always kind of had a passion for it. Yeah.
So, did you follow the traditional actor path of like, okay, now I go to theater school, now I graduate, now I'm an actor?
So that's why the whole second act idea makes a lot more sense, is it's so overwhelming and so overpopulated. And even at the time, I have an older brother and I think I have little brother syndrome where I always feel like the underdog. Like, I don't see myself as leading man. I don't see myself as like the guy you'll fall in love with. I feel like the little guy next door or something, right? So I just never had that perspective of myself. So logical thing. I went to university, got a degree in human kinesiology because I enjoyed gym class.
Heck
And
yes.
when I finished and got it all done, I do music as well. And I was playing music, I was singing at bars, everything was really comfy. And I was thinking maybe I go to teachers college, and it seemed like everyone in my program was going into teachers college. And I'm like, how many teachers do we need teaching gym? So the crazy opportunity that came up that really flipped everything for me was the opportunity to be on Bachelorette Canada, and it was the first ever season. And my agent at the time, I didn't literally hadn't booked anything. I had an agent based off my music, and that I wanted to get into acting, but I auditioned for like 30 things and failed 30 times. And I remember telling her, like, I don't think I'm good at any of this. She's like, well, you just don't have any experience. Do you want to try out for the Bachelorette? I try out, I get on the show, and then I say, all right, if I can get on a show like this and they can see some value in me, maybe I can pull this off. So I packed everything up in Toronto, my hometown, Windsor, and I moved to Toronto on a whim with literally zero plan. I barely knew anybody here. And fast forward, I'm now a full-time actor, and I'm incredibly happy. Yeah.
Take back to the decision. I mean, as somebody who also did gym for Marks, I have a
hmm
kin undergrad and a kin master's, and I work in sports medicine. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Was there a time when you did the flip, right? You said, okay, logical career path is not acting, even
hmm
though I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I even remember saying, I said, by the age of 25, because I was still doing my music, and thought maybe that might be an avenue, but it was just when you're just playing in your hometown, weekend bars, all that stuff, it's not really a trajectory that's kind of like going up, but it was comfortable and I enjoyed it. And I said to myself, at the age of 25, you got to get a real job. You got to like hunker down. If nothing happens, get the 9 to 5 and do that. And I remember when I got on The Bachelorette, I remember there was like this moment where the first night I get the last rose. So I almost got sent home immediately. And I remember just like falling back onto the bed. And also, it's a very unique experience because obviously all 30 guys don't love this girl. So I was like, okay, I can't go back. No matter what happens after this show, I'm going to just move forward. I can't go back to the comfy life that I had. I want to like see what more possibilities there are in the world. So when I moved to Toronto, it's kind of a unique thing that I think happens is when you don't have a plan and you're kind of pushed your back against the wall, you make decisions that in a weird way will guide you towards what you're hoping to do. So I remember I moved here. I was walking the street with some resumes. I bump into my brother's ex-girlfriend. She goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm looking for a job." She goes, "I work at this restaurant." Got me hired that day to start working at this restaurant, and then started, serving, and I was able to keep my serving's a really good job for actors because it affords me the time to pursue the music, pursue the acting, and it was just such a perfect fit. And back in the olden times of acting in Toronto, where you actually would have to go to the audition, so sometimes you'd have like 3 in a day where different spots you'd have to get to all of them. It's very time consuming, and nowadays love being able to just shoot self-tapes, but I do think it's a big disadvantage for new actors because they don't get the face-to-face and actually like talk to the casting directors in the room or even get to know your personality, because there are actors that I think are incredible, but their just normal humanness is so awkward that it's like, would you take working with someone who you enjoy being around rather than the guy who's slightly better at acting? And in a weird way, I think a lot of the people who are just easier to be around on and off camera have a little bit of a leg up.
Because I think that with my own self, and again, sure, is it narcissism? I don't know. I'm like, man, if they could just meet me, I'm so much better in person than I am on this tape. And I think about the analogy to when I was interviewing for medical school. And it's so competitive, right? Even just to get an interview is so competitive. So it's like, even just to get a call back, it's so competitive. But I said, God damn, if I could just get an interview, I know I'm in. I'm in. Because they would rather, at least I feel this way, I would rather work with somebody who has a personality that is great than someone who just has a better GPA. I don't know. Yeah,
I think it applies to all life. Is
it does.
Just be a good person. It helps.
Riddle me that. Okay, I'm curious to hear, and I wonder if this is again little brother, big brother syndrome. Did you ever have anyone in your life dissuading you from a career in performing arts, your music career, acting? Did anyone ever say, no, maybe don't do that? Kinesiology is the way to go and keep doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a funny thing about it is innately in me, I always liked being like the funny guy and making people laugh. And I've always been that way. So I've kind of always liked the attention. So I think moving that way, my parents are like, this makes sense. And I'm super fortunate that I'm able to take risks because I have 2 supportive parents. They were always supportive of what I did. That my rock bottom isn't being, homeless on the street. My rock bottom is if I fail, I have to move back home with my parents, which is maybe worse than being on the street, actually. But yeah, so any risk I had, I always knew there was a net that could catch me. So I think it made it a little easier for me. But yeah, I don't think anybody was ever really like, they'd be like, you sure that you don't want to get a normal real job? And once things, there was a point, the serving job was able to keep me financially okay. So I was never hurting for money or anything. But once there was a point in my acting where I went full-time acting, and it's stressful because every time you don't know where your paychecks are coming. And anytime I was really close to being like, I have no idea why I put all my eggs into this basket, something would come and save me for like another 3 months. And over the last 5 years, it's literally like clockwork. I'm currently right now on the end of the what am I doing right now, but I know something is right around the corner.
Slot machine. right? You know, it's an addiction. It truly is, right? When, you know, you have nothing and you start questioning, why am I doing this to myself? And then it's like, let me give you another hit. Ding! And you're like, oh, okay,
Exactly.
fine.
Keeps pulling you back in.
Keeps reeling you back in. Yeah. Okay, so I know everyone probably asks you about The Bachelorette, because that's just such a unique thing that you had as part of your life. And please correct me if I'm wrong, and I know I'm speaking Bachelorette and Bachelor speak about being, quote, there for the right reasons. But was there, that seems like a catalyst for you. Like, it was something that made you said, oh, I like being on camera. I like being more performative. But what was it about that experience?
Yeah, I'll be 100% clear. I went on it with a hope, knowing it would maybe kind of help me a little bit in my acting pursuits. But I mean, I came from a point when I was 25. There was a girl I really liked that I was seeing for a little while that kind of fizzled out, who really liked The Bachelorette. And I thought if I got on the show, it would get her to notice me again.
Oh.
So that it went from me feeling like I was in love with somebody to going onto this show and meeting this girl where you have these guys like saying, oh my God, I think I'm falling in love in like a day, after I was just with somebody for a little while, that I was like, I think that's what love was. So it was a weird, I never will ever say their experience isn't real or genuine. It's really hard to know. Like, they do become good friends of mine that they'll look me square in the eye and go, I'm in love with this person. It makes no sense to me, but if you can feel that emotion from it, I think it's pretty cool. Sadly, I never felt that, but I think it's cool that we all have these different experiences.
So did it help your acting career?
I wouldn't say it necessarily helped my acting career. It helped me mentally, if anything. It helped me go, wait, I can be on a show with all these other handsome guys. And what I thought was funny is I'm on this show and I look at all these A-type jacked alpha males and I'm the music guy. And I remember like looking at all of them and always being like, wow, I wish I was like them. But when you get to talk to all of them, you kind of see like even their own insecurities, or they'll be like, oh, I wish I played music like you. And you're like, what? Like, I wish I looked like you. So we're all kind of seeing, it's what I always say, it doesn't matter how much you look at somebody or how confident once you actually really get to know everybody, you realize we all have these insecurities and we're all just trying to fit in.
I think that's super interesting, and I can just see so many parallels to acting, right? You know, like how you're supposed to get vulnerable in front of everyone when society's saying, please don't get vulnerable because that makes people feel uncomfortable. But do it for the screen because we'll applaud you. Right? That's what reality TV is.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not as real as you think. They do a lot of...
What?
a lot of cut together stuff. It was so funny because on my season, I'm the music guy, and at the time I was working for the YMCA with at-risk youth, and I thought a cute thing I could do was we did an art thing of a giant rose with every petal was written by one of the kids for why she should like me. So if she was to rip off the petals, they all had like a cute little message. So I'm like, this is gonna like blow her away. So I get there, I'm in the limo and I have this, and the producers come, they go, whoa, you can't give her that. And I was like, what? They're like, oh no, she gives out the roses. Like, we don't want you to give her that. And I'm like, oh crap. So I just get out of the car, I have nothing planned. But then later they're like, well, you're the music guy, you gotta sing for her. And I was like, well, I don't want to just start with opening and singing for somebody before they even get to know me. They're like, well, you could get sent home today. It might not happen. So then it just becomes I'm the music guy and I'm only there to promote my music. And at that time, I wasn't even really doing music. So they kind of, without letting you know there's a box they want to kind of fit you in. And then you fit right into that box, into their plan. And then people are like, is it scripted? And I'm like, no, it's just they're so smart. They outsmart you.
So manipulative, right? It's that psychological manipulation. And we've heard that, right, for decades now from people who've been on reality TV, especially shows like that, where that you hear about like people who are painted the villain, people who are there just to promote whatever, right? It's pretty interesting.
And back to what I think it did help me, it gave me like an initial, at least on social media, a nice little like following boost really quickly. And in a weird way, I mean, a lot of people say it doesn't matter, but I do think having some kind of social presence will help when people are trying to cast. They go, wow, look how many people it has, even if it's 50-year-old moms who are probably not even going to watch the killer show I'm going to be on. But yeah, I think it did really help, and at least if anything, it gave me confidence like moving forward in my career.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me what that moving forward looked like. So after the show, you decide you're in Toronto. What did life look like, and what does it look like for you now?
Yeah, it was. I know I was working at a restaurant, name drop Joey's, at the Eaton Center, and I really enjoyed it. It's where I met my roommate, and me and him have lived with each other for about 7 years. And what's kind of cool about us is when we met, we both made music and had a passion for entertaining. And I worked with him for about 2 years there, and basically around the same time, we both quit to pursue our passion. So he did his music full time, and I pursued acting full time. And at that time, because it's so like sporadic of when your paychecks are coming in, like some months I'm crushing it and I can buy more eggs and more laundry detergent, or sometimes I'm doing bad and he's doing well and he starts picking up those kind of things. So it was really cool living with somebody like that, where both of our careers were kind of like a little wobbly but able to take care of ourselves. And where we're at now, with about 7 years living together, for the last 4 years we've been full time and living our best lives. We don't even have to buy no-name brand cereal anymore. We get to have Frosted Flakes and not Flakes Frosted. It's incredible.
It's a quote that you put on. That is
Yeah,
success.
I do that joke a lot. It's a very, very easy one to go back to.
I can see why. Please
Yeah.
keep doing it. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you. But I think that's, it's supportive of if you're working with other creators. I think even if you were in a actor's household that had multiple actors pursuing the same things, you can read for each other. Like has read for probably 90% of my self-tapes, and having somebody around, like, as well, sometimes you have 24 hours to shoot a self-tape and get it in. Having someone in my house who can help me immediately is such a huge thing to have.
That's what we were talking about in the beginning about community, right? Like networking and all that jazz, right? Mm-hmm. There's something that, and I know this probably sounds a bit conceited, but whatever. If you're not in the industry, people don't quite understand. And I know that that's very elitist. But I think there's some a huge truth to that, right? Not only do people not understand the lack of security, the fact that money doesn't come in every so often, and that like we need to be okay with that, but also that quick turnaround and the empathy that is involved in being an artist. I think you need that community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's as someone who grew up playing sports, where it's like you can see with an actual number if you win or lose. Yeah. For me, that's just how I always was. Like, I'm better because I beat you, and you can see it. In the art world, which is very frustrating, is there's a million reasons for why you book or not book a job. And there's been some stories that I've had, or there was one for a Cadillac commercial where you go in, you go like this, and then you get up and you leave. And I remember in the audition room, I did that, and I was like, it was nothing. On my way out, I was like, I have a monologue ready if you might want to hear it. They're like, no, we're good. Like, have a good day. So I booked the job, and I'm on set, and I'm in front of their PR team, and, they're putting the clothes on you, and they're just analyzing you. And I say, just a quick question, when I was sitting in the audition room, I see all these, like, models and all these guys, like, why did you guys choose me? And they're like, oh, the back of your head actually looked, like, really good for some of the shots. And I was like, I had no control over that. Zero control over what the back of my head looks like. And it was a reason why I booked a job.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. There's another story was I got invited to have a meeting with another agent outside of mine that was a bigger company, and had interviews with them, and they were like, we think you're good, but we want you to just take a few more acting classes. So I was like, all right. So I took classes with Louis Beaumander, and he teaches his style, and then I went over to Dean Armstrong, and they teach their style, and they were kind of conflicting. And then I go and take acting classes with Ron Leach, who was an actual casting director at a time. And he had a very different style as well. And every time I went to them, when I performed my pieces, they would break me down saying, like, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. Why aren't you doing this? And I'm like, but the other person said that that's what you should do. So I got so worn down where I'm like, am I even any good at this? Because anytime I did a scene, they were breaking me down. So I went into this audition for like a thriller killer movie for Larissa Mayer. So there was Larissa Mayer and the director of the film. And I remember doing my scene and thinking in my head when I finished, like, oh, that must have been so average. And I pick my head up and I look at them and they go, that was the best audition we had all day. And I'm like, seriously? And they're like, yeah, why? Why didn't you like it? I was like, I don't know. The acting classes I've been taking have been telling me I'm not very good. And they're like, that was really good. Like, we were so proud of you. So after that, I just literally, instead of taking acting classes, I just decided to just keep working on my own by shooting my own tapes, writing my own scenes, and just learning from being on set. So it's a weird thing is I think acting classes are great, but no matter what you do because it's art, they can break you down. So it's a weird thing, and I think that can be hard for actors.
It's so interesting you say that because the person I was chatting with before you was a child actor, and we were talking about the idea of class burnout. Mm-hmm. And she was saying, she's like, I'd been told you need to take class all the time. You need to be in class all the time. If you're not, everyone else is, and so you're behind. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I would get to the point where I'm just like, I don't enjoy this anymore. I'm not learning anything new. They're breaking me down, and there's no joy left. Mm-hmm. Like, what's the point?
Exactly.
And you're burnt out.
And I think expensive. A lot of them, yeah, it's expensive. And then that was another thing, too. I remember there was this one acting class where this guy who kept coming in just wouldn't even have his lines memorized. Something as simple as that. And if I was the acting teacher, I'd be like, I would tell them, like, I just don't think this is for you. Like, you should try something else. But instead, they keep bringing him into classes and collecting his money. And I don't think he would even get work on set because he would get fired for not knowing his lines and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's tough, but you got to understand that obviously it's a business for them. And yeah, so. But I am thankful. I have learned a lot. I do steal little elements. But I think something in a lot of acting classes that they maybe don't teach, they always kind of teach the idea of like getting to the emotions. But I really liked when I learned like stuff about what eye contact means, what like if I cross my arms, what is that showing? All those different kind of like was more powerful to me. And once I learned tactics like that, I was able to fix my own like insecurities as an actor. So with me, staring somebody in the eyes was always uncomfortable for me. So not as the character, but as me subconsciously, I'd always like drop my eyes. But when you watch it back on your scenes, you're like, oh, I hated that I did that because it's showing that I look nervous when my character was trying to be like strong and confident. And I remember watching this video of this guy who he's like it's a video of a dude who's from jail who's so good at like breaking you down and getting information out of you. And he was like a guy who worked for the mob who now works for like police. And when he gets information out of you, he literally just stone cold stares you down without like blinking. And it feels like he looks into your soul. And that's how, like, if I was to play a bad guy, I'm like, I love what that guy does. That if you look nervous and you're blinking and stuff, you lose all that tension that you're building. And those are things that maybe you don't learn in acting classes, but more so from just having more life experiences. Mm-hmm.
So now that you're pursuing acting full time, mm-hmm. has there been anything surprising about the industry for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think at least in the Canadian side, what I find is surprising is I've been full time for about 5 years now in the union, and mostly doing, straight to TV rom-coms or Christmas movies and a few TV shows here and there. I have yet to be in a movie that's been in theaters.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to happen or if it'll ever happen, but it's like what I assumed when I became an actor, that's what you even get an opportunity for. But all the big films that get those are usually they take American actors, or even if I was to get into it, I'm playing such a small bit role that I probably wouldn't help my career as much as I would like. So yeah, I think that's just a weird phenomenon that I don't know if that's specific to me, but...
No, it's not. And I'm just, now that's making me reflect on what a lot of people have talked about, right? Especially in the Canadian film industry. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a frustration that is shared, I think, across the country about that idea, right? You have all these mm-hmm. productions coming up to Canada from the States because they get all these beautiful tax credits. They don't hire Canadian actors because they can bring them up from the States. and there's no star system in Canada, and apparently we don't have any talent up here anyway, and they all hear all this stuff. Or what we need to do is we need to move to Los Angeles, and then as soon as I move to the States, I'll start booking in Canada. There's so many rumors that we hear. Have you heard that? What are your thoughts?
I agree with that so much. Even me, who's been able to be full time, in how stressful it is for me. I still think I need to be higher and up. But where I'm at now, I have to realize that a lot of people would kill to have the opportunities that I have. So I'm very thankful for it. But when I think about that, and I'm in conference meetings with ACTRA and stuff, something that I really think they need to look into is, I know SAG has it, is you can kind of sign out 3 times of the union to work on non-union projects where maybe you're featured as the lead or something, to help give you not only experience, but also a little bit of exposure on that side. So that was something that I brought up, and I remember in the meeting, they're like, well, do you want to get paid? And I'm like, well, yeah, obviously, but you have to be able to want to understand that these are opportunities that can help you grow. And I think that just a lot of the actors, they're getting into the union, but they're never getting opportunities to be a lead. And you'll never grow with a star system if you just keep giving it to the American actors. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a really cool thing that SAG has. And I think why would I could wax poetic about ACTRA and I'm whatever. And get ACTRA canceled here, but it's like, why wouldn't they want to do that? Wouldn't you want to align with a union that is a literal juggernaut in this industry? Wouldn't you want to be very similar? Like what SAG is doing is correct, at least maybe not correct. Is they're doing well, I should say, and they were successful with their strike. Like, why would Canada not say, ooh, I'm looking at you and I want that too for my union members?
I mean, their point of view, and I understand it, I get it. I think it's hard that I say Canada's kind of soft sometimes about everything, but
we totally are.
Exactly, right? So it's like, well, if you work on that set, you don't have any insurance if you get hurt. You don't have any, if there's a sexual misconduct thing, or if you don't get paid, we can't protect you. But while I was a non-union actor for the first 4 years of my career, I never didn't get paid. I was never sexually, I'm different, I'm a male. But I didn't ever have any problems, and I thought the pay was actually pretty good while I was still in those fields, and having the opportunity, because I'm not going against union actors, to have lead role opportunities. It could help. And like I said, it'd be maybe 3 projects or something, not a ton, still trying to help out with the union, but just an idea, but I don't think it'll ever fly.
For anybody looking to either start a career in acting later on in life, or change from what they're doing into something more kind of performative like you did.
Yeah, I think 2 things that are really important is, number one, don't just try to move to Toronto and only get into acting and think that's the one thing that you're going to do and you're going to have so much success right off the bat. I truly believe there's a video of a guy who's an actor in LA who you wouldn't even recognize him, but he has over 100 credits. And he even said he's been doing it so long, but the first 5 years of his career, it took him 5 years even just to get to a point where he was consistent enough to be full-time as an actor, right? And I had a very similar experience that I would tell anybody, get a side job and just kind of slowly keep progressing towards whatever it is. And then the other thing is consistency. Is as soon as you decide to burn out and you give up, you've already lost, right? But if you're consistent, I truly believe every day, if you say, I want to be an actor, and you do one little thing every day, maybe it's make a little video of you acting or something, or go to a network meeting or anything like that, each day gradually will just keep building, and over the span of a couple of years, people will see you as an actor. Yeah. It's more of a spiritual philosophy that applies. I think that applies to literally anything, though.
It does. And I'm also really curious because I know I was about to say, I know your credit history. I know your credit score. I know the credits that you have. And like you were saying, you have been very successful in the M.O.W., the Christmas movie, the Hallmarks, which we see a ton of those auditions here in Canada. Do you have any advice for those genres specifically? Because even though there's like this weird mentality of, oh, that's not real, blah, blah, they're some of the hardest genres to crack, I think.
I mean, it's why I think it's so weird, at least for me, to give advice to another actor who doesn't look like me, is I understand that maybe I'm a little bit attractive, that I can go for those lead role kind of things. Like I already have a leg up solely based on how I look, right? But there are an overwhelming amount of handsome white guy so your competition is overwhelming, right? And what can you do to separate yourself? And something that's been so huge to me was my music side. So I would say maybe 80% of the movies I'm in, my character either plays guitar, sings, or plays piano, right? So my first lead role supporting lead role was actually so crazy for me because I'd never did an ACTRA movie and they needed somebody who could play guitar, play piano, and sing. So I booked this movie. It's called Rock and Roll Christmas, and it stars Beverly Mitchell, who's from Seventh Heaven, as Lucy. And I remember it filmed in Ottawa, and I remember coming up and getting into the table read room, and I never met any of the other actors. So I get in and I sit down, and it's me, a guy who's never been in a full-length movie, and I look across and it's Lucy. And I was just learning so much, and that's also, as you go along, having that first movie, I learned so much. Was the first day was this scene about the mom and daughter talking about, they're arguing, and my character's mom is dead. So my character gets up and is like, I can't believe you guys are doing this. Like, I don't even have my mom. And I start crying. And I think I nailed this scene. I'm thinking in my head, holy crap, the director's going to love me. So the scene ends, and then all I hear from behind the camera, I go, David, get over here. So I come over, and the director's like, hey, this is a Christmas movie. Pull it back by like 100. So I'm giving like the best performance of my life and not realizing the subtlety it's just a Christmas movie, right? So those are little things that you learn on set that you don't really know otherwise.
It's so funny because, and I think that's so important to know, again, genre, right? Genre and tone and all those buzzwords that we use in acting about. With Hallmark, the drama is real for the people in it, but it's also, has to be a level of pure joy because the audience is like, the world is really stressful and shitty. We're watching this film to not experience that, to completely escape. Exactly. I don't want to hear about your dead mom.
I actually, one time, so for that movie, it was so weird too because they didn't announce it at all, but there's a theater here in Toronto that shows, it's like a really old classic one, and it was like July, and for some reason that Christmas movie was playing at this theater, and I go in, I'm like, hey, this is crazy, but like, would it be possible if I rent like a screening time and bring like 30 of my friends and fill this thing? And they're like, yeah, 100%. I'm like, I'm in the movie, like if I'm happy, other things. So I get like 30 of my friends were in there, and while we're watching, we're all cracking jokes, like making fun of things. But there was this one old lady just sitting at the back. And after I was done, my agent's like, oh, go say hi to that like lady who was watching. She watches this entire movie that I'm in, like pretty much the main guy. And I go, hi, like, what did you think of the film? She's like, oh, it was very sweet. I was like, I was the guy. I was that guy. And she goes, really? I was like, yeah, I'm him, the guy you just watched the whole thing. She's like, well, that was swell. And like, as if she didn't even watch. Like, I think she just wanted to just watch nice, calming, peaceful stuff, and just to make her feel good. So I always thought that was a unique thing. But going back to what you said, I think having a skill outside of just acting. So if you can play music, that really helps. Recently, I was in a film where I needed horseback riding experience. So that's like another skill. Motorcycle riding, all those things. Any skill that you can add to your resume, they will happily take somebody who has experience doing whatever that skill is over somebody who doesn't. So that would be my biggest advice.
think that's so useful because, and you know, it made me laugh when you were like, yeah, there's so many good looking white dudes out there. And, but also it's, there's such a level of, you know, that's just our industry, right? As I'm a 40-year-old mom in this industry, I'm neither 40 nor a mom, but that's what the industry sees me as. Like, I'm no longer getting cast, not that I ever did, getting cast as a lead in a Hallmark. I'm always the second banana, right? I'm the friend of the lead female. Totally happy
Oh, I know it very well.
Right,
Yeah.
you know, or I'm like the sister of the lead male, right? And which is fine, but I think there's a weird, I don't know, I'd love your thoughts on this about, do we as actors, especially in Canada, do we need to know our hit, or do we need to really explore everything that we can be?
Yeah, I would say of the 8 years that I've been doing this, the times I've read for a character who isn't basic white guy is peanuts. Like playing a mid-century like knight or something, or a drunk pirate never shows up my door. As much as I'd like to attempt those things. And then I always think it's really cool is when I get a chance to attempt those, I never book them. So yeah, I think 98% of an actor is they're taking a lot of what your already look is. Which I think is unique that, you know, when you see somebody like Christian Bale, who I really admire, where he'll like lose 80 pounds for a role or gain 80 pounds for a role, and really just like, it always blows my mind that they have the confidence in that person and know that they could pull that off. But I do feel like in Canada, when it's an MOW, sometimes I'll book I've done 4 lead role movies, and usually by the time I have a lead role, I find out maybe 2 weeks before we start filming. So it's not really like I can have a crazy body change or try something unique. So I've never really had those opportunities. And it was funny, Natalie Portman did a master class. And she's like, oh, I trained for a year before Black Swan to be a dancer. And I was like, we don't have that time. I have no idea how you got all that time. Yeah.
Definitely, I think about how quickly Hallmark and M.O.W.s film, but also the quantity of how many productions they want to do, right? In a year. Where something like Black Swan, or I think about like Daniel Day-Lewis, who like goes away for 6 months to become Abraham Lincoln. It's like these are people and productions that have a bajillion $1 million, and they can say, yes, we'll give you that year. Where I find Hallmark and M.O.W. and like Canada and specifically are like, no, we need to produce 30 Christmas movies in the month of February. And you better be ready to do it, and you better look exactly like the way you did in your audition, because we don't have the time.
Exactly. And I think, I mean, I will never, ever say, I get Christmas movies are really not something I would watch, but I am so eternally grateful that they exist, because they are the platform of where I'm learning that if I do get my opportunity to be on something bigger, I've made all my mistakes through those movies, and I've learned so much. And I think Christmas movies, the best way I can describe them, are the greatest platform for up-and-coming actors to learn.
I think, as somebody who's done several as well, too, the speed that you need to be your character, you're not going to get 5 takes.
I love that you brought this up. Yeah. I love that you brought this up, because there was the last one we worked on, it was a really tight schedule moving along. And yeah, it made me laugh because sometimes I messed up words, and I was like, oh, on the next one I'll fix it. And they're like, moving on. And I would look at my co-star and be like, what? But and that's the thing, is they're just watching it. The emotions and everything are right. And even if you mess up a couple words, but it is true. Like in the MOW, you don't have 8, 9 to play around. You do the same thing every single scene. So that's something, if somebody's watching this and wants to know a little bit about acting for MOWs, you're not as playful. It's when you're shooting from all the different angles, really understand what you did at what moment so that it can all cut together and look really nice, because the directors, the production team, and everybody will love you that they don't have to do retakes or anything, because it all cuts together really nice.
Some really great on-set examples that you've had. Do you have any other favorite moments on set or funny stories?
I always find, like, what I think is cool for onset stories is people that I work with that I don't think you'll ever lose it is people that are kind of seen as more than you. They're just human beings. But you see, like, if George Clooney walked into a room, you're like, oh my God, that's George Clooney. Treat him differently or say something, you know. So when I work with other actors that I admire and I show up, I'm always like nervous. So I remember I was working on The Boys and Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander, is sitting next to me. And they're like, oh, don't bother him. Like, don't say anything to him. I was like, no worries. I won't. So I sit down and he was like reading a paper and he looks at me. He's like, how's your day going, man? I was like, they told me I can't talk to you. He's like, nah, he's like, it's cool. It's cool. So strike up a little conversation with him. And I was like, yeah, you know, this is a really cool opportunity for me. I've never worked on TV shows and started chatting with him. And he's like, oh, how long are you here? I was like, just one day. So you'll probably never see me again. He's like, oh, no worries, man. Well, best of luck in your career. They brought me back for season 3. And I remember I'm sitting in this chair and he walks in and he looks at me and he goes, you said I'd never see you again. And I was like, it's crazy that he remembered that, right? So little moments like that I think are really cool. Or Gabori Sidibe, who's Precious. I did a Christmas movie with her. And off camera, she is so hilarious. She would just tell us these old stories about like her childhood and just crack us up. And she's just such a lovely human on and off. So those are just some really nice ones that I've had.
I love that. And I think, again, it goes right back to what we were talking about at the beginning with networking, right? I think, you know, if you treat people like normal human beings and you're not wanting something from them, then that's all there is, right? I think they're just probably so used to people saying, I want something from you, an autograph, a selfie, or whatever. You know, when you're sitting there shooting the shit, they're like, oh my God, I can be a normal human being for once, talking about, you know, what books I'm reading. It's so nice.
And that's a thing too is, even for me, is if anybody ever wanted a photo with me, I'm so happy to do it. But when you take the ACTRA, like when you first get into ACTRA, you have a class to learn about like etiquette and stuff. They're like, at no cost do you ask an actor to take a photo. And I'm like, I get why, you know, that can be mean, but, you know, as peers, even if it's a background actor or something, if I have moments in between and they want to grab a photo, I'm happy because I know that's what I like to do. So sometimes when I'm working with these actors who are now my peers, I still feel that like, oh God, I don't want to be cringe asking for a photo or something. So there was a Christmas movie with Jodie Swinton from Full House, and I was playing her ex-boyfriend. And it was like at lunch, and I was like, I want a photo with her so bad. And I go to her, I'm like, hey, can I get a photo with you? And she's like, oh, yeah, 100%. So we take a photo. And the other guy in the movie is Tim Rosen, who's from Schitt's Creek. And he sees me take a photo with her, and he goes, why didn't you ask me for a photo? I was like, I'm like, I was going to. He's like, we're going to take a way better photo. So he takes me outside, and we shoot a different type of photo. And I was like, it's awesome. Like, once you know, they see you. I've never had a problem where I've asked somebody for a photo and it didn't go well.
Again, you're a peer, and you're not asking like a douche. Like it's just you're a human asking another human. Anyway, I could wax poetic about it, but
exactly, yeah,
it's just lovely. Yeah. Do you have anything you are looking forward to coming up this year?
I have a Christmas movie. It's called Bluegrass Christmas. That was a lot of fun to shoot with another up-and-coming star, Amanda Jordan, who's a lovely singer. And I also got to work with Sean. I can't remember his last name, but he's from Heartland. And he was really lovely to work with because he's been in the industry for so long. And I get to ride horses, and there's some really cool movement. Like, it's very funny because I play the guy who doesn't know how to ride horses. So that was a really cool experience, and at least for me, why I think it's going to really help me even moving forward. It was supposed to be shot in America, in North Carolina, during the strike, but the strike was taking so long, so they decided to move the production to Toronto, which provided me that opportunity, where I usually would never get a chance to be the lead in this film, but everything kind of aligned, and I got that opportunity, and it's going to be ported to like pretty much everything, all the streaming services and stuff. So it's probably the biggest film that I will be on, and it's coming out this year. So,
Okay, but Bluegrass Christmas, are you playing your guitar?
I do. So that's why I was saying learn music. It's very important. And I don't even play the guy. I play a guy who's who likes a girl who plays it, and I just so happen to play. So yeah, it's a really fun movie. Even it was a Christmas movie. I remember reading the script, and I was going on vacation. It was on a plane, and there's a part. Well, I probably can't say anything about it, but there's a part that it was really emotional. I'm crying on the plane on the vacation. My buddy's like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, "A Christmas movie." It's she loved him, you know. So yeah, I don't know. It's a really cute film that's coming out.
It's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
Words of wisdom. I would say I think the most important thing is the thoughts in your head. It's the biggest motivating factor. So if you believe you can, you're already halfway there. If you have a lot of self-doubt in your head, I think it's just really important to understand and try to figure out where it's coming from, and then slowly over time switch the narrative to, I can do this, like it's possible. So I think for me, there was a friend of mine, she's a life coach, and when I was kind of struggling a lot, she goes, you know, you always see the negative perspective of everything, right? And I was like, maybe. She goes, well, if you try and see the positives, even if it's something that you think is a failure, like, okay, you just lost at this audition, you didn't get the job. Instead of saying, you know, you lost and you failed, say it was a nice learning experience and it'll help me grow and move on to the next thing. So just all those perspective shifts, I think, make such a big difference in getting you to where you want to be. So keep positive and you'll attract positive.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, David, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule doing all the really amazing stuff that you do to chat with me and chat with my guests. I so appreciate you. I hope you will all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye.